And it's time for the 2017 Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, a tournament that showcases the most challenging layout that the Iron Hill Disc Golf Course has to offer. To see who will finish on top and meet the challenge best at the end of Day 2 competition, stay tuned as Disc Golf Monthly starts now. Hello and thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Disc Golf Monthly. This month's show takes us to Newark, Delaware for the 2017 Delaware Disc Golf Challenge at the Iron Hill Disc Golf Course, where this course has a fantastic challenge for players. The par layout is 72, and it's just a variety of uphill shots and tightly wooded shots. There aren't many open holes in this course. It has a few of them as well. Most of the layup positions on this layout they're going to be playing today are par 4. The front nine will feature 2 par 3s, as well as the back nine will also feature 2 par 3s. There will also be a total of 4 par 5 holes to be played on the course today, 2 of them on the front nine and 2 of them on the back nine. The weather today is playing a factor in the tournament. The scheduled play was supposed to have tee times, but with the afternoon, late afternoon, it's expected to have some thunder showers. So at this point, they've moved a shotgun start to 8 a.m. and it's going to be an early start time. It's going to be a very challenging day here. Let's take a look at who's on the lead card in the Men's Open Division, which we're going to be featuring today. In first place, shooting at 65, we have Steve Brinster from Warwick, New York. Tied for first place, from Baltimore, Maryland, we have Andrew Fish, also shooting at 65. In third place, we have Kevin Gleason from Salisbury, Maryland, shooting at 66. And also tied for third place on the lead card, we have Zach Melton from Gray, Tennessee, who's also shooting a 66. Well, we have a well-rounded card here. Players playing from throughout the East Coast. Zach Melton coming up from Tennessee. Steve Brinster coming down from Warwick, New York. It's going to be an exciting finish here for Day 2 competition. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Disc Golf Monthly's coverage of the 2017 Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, Round 2 on Day 2. We have Steve Brinster and Andrew Fish tied with the 65, and Kevin Gleason and Zach Melton each tied with a 66 for second place. And we're starting off on basket 1. This is a par 4, 605 feet. Steve Brinster's on the tee first. Looks like he's going to set up with a turnover shot here. He turns that over nicely.
Shot. Nice throw. Nice. I'm talking like...
Andrew Fish plays the same.
Thank you.
Kevin Gleason. Kevin throws a much straighter shot than the other two. It's going to fade out a little bit to the end of the left. You have Zach Melton. He's a left-hander. He gets a nice amount of turn on that. It's going to fade nicely for him.
Yeah.
Kevin has to play through some trees. And just going with an Anheuser shot here.
Get around.
And it just caught up with some vegetation at the end. Here's Zach's second shot. You can see the basket down there beyond that tree. It's going to float. Oh, almost floated right to the basket for him, but it struck that tree. Here's Steve Brinster with his second shot. You can see the basket down there to the right of that big tree in the middle. Steve's just going to float one down there. Flirted with going in the basket. There's Andrew Fish with his third throw. And that's going to sit down easy for him. He'll have an easy par. So Kevin Gleason has a tree to play around.
I was right in front of it.
And he just hyzers it.
Here you go, Kev.
There's Zach shooting for par. And Steve's going to start off the round with a birdie. A great start for Steve. Steve breaks away with a one-stroke lead over Andrew Fish. As we move on to basket 2, this is a par 3, 380 feet. This shot, you have to start out very straight, and you have to get a hyzer angle as you get past that grouping of trees up to the right. Andrew flirted with that tree.
No.
He got kicked down.
No, wow, no.
Zach's going to have a tough time on this hole, being a lefty. He's going to go with a sidearm shot. Just gets unlucky and hits that tree. He's going with a sidearm shot again. He just gets that through perfectly and kicks off a tree at the end. Steve going for back-to-back birdies. He makes it. Steve is a big fan of the straddle putt, as you can see. And Andrew stays behind one stroke. Sorry, he drops a stroke again here. He's now 2 strokes behind Steve. Steve getting his second birdie of the round. As we move on to basket 3, this is a par 4, 660 feet. Steve looks like he's going to usually goes with the backhand roller in this shot. And he does again. And that's just going left on him. But it's coming right now. It took a hard right. And it went into the bushes there off to the right. Comes Andrew with his drive. And here's Zach with his second shot. He played that nicely.
Get in there.
Yeah, have a chance to shoot for a birdie with his next shot as Kevin Gleason has his next throw. And you can see the basket just there up in the distance with the flag hanging out from top of it. Here's Andrew with his second shot.
Be nice. Be nice.
Andrew tries with an Anheuser shot, but it just fades out when it goes into that gully. Steve Brinzer has to play out of the bushes now.
Nice.
And Kevin Gleason's shot goes down in the gully. Steve going for his third birdie. It's going to be a tough one. And he just lays up. There's a lot of risk reward on that shot. There's a deep fall off just beyond the basket.
Good run.
So Andrew's playing back up the hill for birdie. And he makes it. That's his first birdie of the round. And he'll get one stroke back on Steve with that putt.
Nice putt. Putt again.
And now Andrew's one stroke and back of Steve with a 75, Steve with a 74. We're moving on to basket 4. This is a par 4, 675 feet. This hole is another hole where a lot of the players will go with a roller shot off the tee. Let's see, Steve looks like he's setting up for that shot. That's just rolling left on him, going towards that thick group of trees. It could be tough to get out of there. Kevin Gleason goes with the turnover shot. It's going to keep turning for me until it gets struck down by that tree. There's now Zach Milton with his drive.
Yeah, and then just throw like just an 80 at it. Kind of flat. Oh.
And Kevin just throws the perfect shot. That S back nicely for him. Zach's going with a sidearm. Let's see how far that skipped away on. The road beyond the basket is Obey. He was very close to it. Here's Steve. And Steve threw a very nice shot.
Correct.
Andrew's shot, he plays pretty far, puts him pretty far from the basket where that landed. Zach's shooting for birdie. And he makes it. And Andrew makes a birdie as well. It's his second birdie of the round. Here's Steve with birdie number 4. He makes it. I'm sorry, that's birdie number 3 for Steve. Everybody birdies this hole. We still have a one-stroke difference between Steve and Andrew. As we move on to basket 5, this is a par 4, 690 feet. This is the first of 2 par 5 baskets on the front 9. As we see Andrew's drive.
shot, Ken. Thank you. There you go. Too late. Two turns, too slow. Kick left. There you go.
Kevin's going to get way too much turn on that shot. There's Andrew Fish playing on his second shot. It's a very narrow fairway in this area. Zach goes with a sidearm shot, which he tried to turn over and get a Neinheiser release on it, and it just kicked off a tree and kicked back on the left side of fairway for him.
Turn.
Steve Britzer threw that straight as an arrow. It's Heisering off at the end. He is at the base of that hill with that shot. He'll have a chance at an eagle with his next shot. Zach's pulling out of the rough, and he's having a hard time doing that. He's right back in. Kevin just goes, very gutsy move, goes straight down the middle of those two trees. He goes over the basket. He's on the other side of the elevation hill that we have here. Andrew is playing out from the middle of a tree here. He goes with a sidearm shot. He's about halfway up that elevation. Here's Steve shooting for an eagle. And it just fades to the right a little bit, too much for him. Kevin makes a nice putt from the other side. So everybody birdies that but Zach. As we move on to basket 6, this is a par 4, 625 feet. Andrew says with a very nice long far shot. It's got to Heis a little sooner than that. That should be okay for him. Here's Steve with his drive. It's going to be a very tough shot for Zach. This is a very righty backhand friendly hole. He tries to put it through there. It just doesn't work out for him. He gets struck down.
Stay cutting, stay cutting, stay cutting, stay cutting. Oh yeah, Kev. Nice shot, Kevin.
Kevin looks like he threw the perfect shot. He may have a putt with his next shot. And Andrew keeps it very low, but he gets a nice skip. It's going to put him right up very close to the basket. He'll be putting for 3 with that lie. Here's Steve's second shot. So he throws a nice turnover shot. Zach is in a tough position here. He goes to the sidearm. He just makes it throw, and that will putt for him. There's Steve putting for birdie. And he just misses. Just clanks off the rim. Here's Andrew Fish putting for birdie. He could tie it up with that, and he does. So at this point, we have a tie for first place once again, as Andrew records his fourth birdie of the round. As we move on to basket 7, this is a par 3, 370 feet. This is our second of 2 par 3 pin positions on the front 9. And just going to go the backhand shot. Just placed too close to that big tree too soon. And Steve's going to hit the same tree. He's going to kick off in the opposite direction. Kevin's going to play it straight down the middle. Fades away from the basket at the end. Zach just gets past that tree. That knocked down Andrew and Steve's discs. Steve to save par. And he again goes with the straddle putt, and that works for him. Now we're moving on to basket 8. This is our second of 2 par 5 pin positions today on the front 9.
Come on, baby. Yeah. Nice.
Oh yeah, great shot. Good shot. Nice rip, Steve. Is that Leah?
Zach's just going to get a late release, and he's going to get kicked off out into the rough. He's on the edge now. Didn't go as far deep as it looked at first. He's going to go with a hyzer shot.
Right.
That's going to play out nicely for him.
Here you go.
And Andrew is now putting for eagle. It just fades away before the basket. Here's Zach for birdie. And he makes it. Moving on to basket 9, this is a par 4, 555 feet. Andrew gets a little too much turn, kicks off that tree early. Here's Steve Brinster with his first shot. Steve is going to kick off the other tree on the other side. Kevin's going to go right down the middle. He's going to fade out left on him. Here's Zach with his drive. So Steve and Andrew both play out of the rough nicely. Here's Kevin with his second throw. He's going to throw a straight shot right to the end. Zach's going to go with an overhand shot. That's going to.
Come on, baby.
Turns out it's a roller.
Great shot.
Good shot, Zach.
Gets him close enough, he could putt from there.
Oh, baby. Great shot, Steve.
Steve's third shot had a perfect line. Andrew throws a very nice turnover shot. That's gliding down to the basket. Both of those last two shots at putt. Here's Zach. Now Zach's putting for par.
Nice putt.
So no change between Andrew and Steve. Kevin picks a stroke up on Zach. We're moving on to the back 9 now. This is basket 10. Par 5, 675 feet. This is our first of 2 par 5 holes on this course, on this back 9. Jack's gonna have a tough time again. This is a righty backhand friendly layout on this, the way this hole is laid out. And just there's a straight shot down the middle. It's gonna hyzer off at the end. Kevin's gonna get let go a little early. Here's Steve playing from the edge of the rough with his second shot. Oh, and he kicks off that tree. He was trying to avoid that tree. That just kicked him off into the rough on the other side of the fairway. Here's Zach with his second throw.
Oh, wow.
And he just, as he was releasing, got caught in some vegetation and did not go far at all for him. Steve is also having a hard time getting out of the rough.
Got that his best part.
And Steve, let's go with the perfect Anheuser shot. That got him right down the fairway. Here's Kevin.
Here you go.
That lays up nicely for him as well. Here's Zach with his fourth throw.
There you go, Steve.
And with that birdie, Andrew climbs out in front of Steve. 1 stroke lead. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
We finally bought a place.
You seriously have enough saved to do that?
We've been putting a little aside each month.
So at the end of the month, we have nothing left to save. How is my account overdrawn?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
And welcome back. And now we're on basket 11. This is a par 4, 600 feet. He's going with a very straight drive, and it just kicks off that tree in front of us. And here's Zach. Going with a sidearm shot. It's turning over nicely. And Steve's second shot. Kevin goes
Go
with
in,
a
go
turnover
in.
shot. It's going to fade back at the end. Looked like it was going to go in. Steve just lost one out there. This collides on the way down to a basket.
Come on.
Zach goes with a jump putt, and it just kicks off the rim.
Great putt.
Andrew is putting for birdie number 7 of this round. Gets distracted.
There you go, dude.
And that's 7 birdies for Andrew Fish. And so now Andrew has a 2-stroke lead over Steve. Kevin Gleason records his 4th birdie of the round. And we're moving on to basket 12. This is a par 4, 520 feet. Andrew throws a very straight shot. A little bit of turn at the end and fades back nicely back onto the fairway. Kevin threw a straight shot as well, but it kicked off that tree at the end. Steve with his drive. Steve looked like he almost got a little too much turn there. Looked like he was going to get caught in that grouping of trees off to the right, but it just snuck through. And Zach also plays off in that direction, but at the end, he gets knocked down. Here's Zach with his, Kevin with his 2nd shot.
Good shot.
As the players approach the basket, there's going to be a steep drop off. This is a very challenging, as you get closer to the basket, the elevation drops off more and more. Steve just went right at that tree. Andrew's in about the same spot as Steve. Let's see if he can avoid that tree. He throws a straight shot. Just going to hyzer off a little bit at the end towards the basket. You can see the flag there. Here's Kevin Gleason from the knees for his 3rd shot. And he just lays up to the basket. Zach is putting for birdie. And Andrew makes his birdie putt. And Steve loses a stroke to Andrew, 2 strokes to Andrew. And now we're moving on to basket 13. This is the first of 2 par 3 holes on this back 9. This is a par 3. It's 360 feet to the basket. This is a downhill shot where you have to start out straight, but as you get down that elevation, this needs to hyzer back to the right. A few years ago, Steve Rico aced this 1 month during our coverage. Andrew has some piece of a very thick rough. It looks like he went a little too far. Looks like he's going to have to play back to the basket for his par. Steve goes with a jump putt, but it's just a little too tall and it kicks off the top of the basket. Kevin also gets a little too high and kicks off the chastity belt. Andrew has to play back to the basket for his par. And it just kicks out for him. He's going to have to settle for a bogey. Steve can get a stroke back with this putt. And he makes it. So now Andrew has a 3-stroke lead over Steve. And he's ahead of Kevin by 1 stroke. As we move on to basket 14, this is a par 3, 370 feet. This is the second of 2 par 3 holes on the back 9.
Go. Ready. Nice shot.
What are you doing? Why?
Andrew gets a little too much turn on that. Kicks off a tree and puts him out on the edge of the rough.
There he is.
There's one.
And Zach shoots for birdie on that. That's his second birdie of the round. And Andrew saves par. Steve Britcher shooting for birdie. Steve can get another stroke back and be 2 behind if he makes his putt. This will be his 6th birdie of the round if he makes it. And he does. And now we're down to a 2-stroke difference between Andrew and Steve. Steve now has a 2-stroke lead over Kevin Gleason as we move on to basket 15. This is a par 4, 440 feet. Zach is going to struggle. He put a little too much turn on that.
Go.
Yep.
Go there.
There you go. Hold on.
Good shot.
And Andrew just threads it perfectly down the middle. He's going to skip away to the left at the end. Here's Zach playing out of that rough with a sidearm shot. There's Andrew with his second shot. He's going to throw a sidearm. He's just going to lay up to the basket. Here's Steve with the second shot. He's looking like he's going to go in an Anheuser shot here to get him up to the basket. And it just lets it go a little late and it kicks off that tree. Here's Zach with his 3rd throw. And he kicks off a tree early as well. And Steve lays up and that will putt. If Andrew makes his putt, he can get a stroke back and take it to a 3-stroke lead once again. And he makes it. So now, once again, have a 3-stroke difference between Steve and Andrew. As we move on to basket 16, this is a par 4, 615 feet. Kevin Gleason now has the box. He's going to go for a shot down the middle. It's going to hyzer off to him at the end. Andrew Fish, his drive, he played it close to the edge of the left side of the fairway, but he got pretty good progress down the fairway. Here's Steve with his first shot. Steve lets it go too far to the right and it kicks off that tree.
Good play.
Andrew gets a nice turnover sidearm shot. That faded very nicely down the fairway for him. Zach's once again going with the sidearm shot.
Yeah, I like it.
That holds that line nicely for him.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
And that could be laying right underneath the basket. That was very close. Here's Steve with his third throw. He's going to let that turn over a little bit. It's going to drop sooner.
Great shot.
And that should be in a position to par for make par in his next shot. Moving on to basket 17. This is our second of 2 par 5 holes on the back nine. This is 885 feet to the basket. Zach just rips one straight down the middle. Hardly any fade at the end. That's the perfect shot right there. Off the tee, that's exactly what you need to do. Kevin Gleason, a little bit of turn, runs into that tree. Looks like Andrew let that go a little bit sooner than expected. He kicks off the tree, but that puts him out on the fairway, so that's a good thing. And Steve threw a very nice shot.
He's still doing the
Here's Andrew with his second shot. And that has a nice hyzer fade on it at the end. That's going to be nice for him.
Oh, hidden tree.
Here's Steve with his third shot.
Good spot.
He kicks off a tree.
Oh, too much. Come back. No!
And she kicks off a tree. You can see the basket far off in the distance. It's on top of that hill that's just pretty far off in the distance on the left of your screen. And Steve looks like he's going to sit down right at the base of the hill. And Kevin Gleason threads that perfectly through that group of trees. Looks like that's going to carry him over the hill. They'll have to play back. Here's Zach with his birdie attempt. That's a jump putt and he makes it. Oh, but it actually spit out. With the player's reaction, it made it seem as though that's stuck in the chains, but it did chain out, unfortunately. Here's Steve. It was his birdie attempt. And Andrew putts for par. So with one hole to go, Andrew has a 3-stroke lead over Steve. Steve has a 2-stroke lead over Kevin. As we finish up here on basket 18, this is a par 4, 630 feet to the basket. That's going to let that go a little too early. It's going to hyzer off on him.
It's playable.
We'll have to see where that leaves him. And Andrew lets that go a little too soon. He gets in the way, so it's hard to see where that ended up. Here's Steve with his first shot.
Flip up, flip up, flip up a little. Yeah, Kev. Good shot.
Zach's going to go with a roller shot to get out of the rough. Looks like that worked for him nicely. There's Kevin.
Big.
And he splits that group of trees perfectly. He's going to get a nice, good shot. Able to get batted down at the end.
God damn it.
And just going to go with a very high hyzer shot. Gets knocked down early.
Slow down. Good. Oh, good.
Here's Kevin with his third shot. You can see the basket just between that opening, between those two rocks in the middle. There's Zach, he's going for par. And he makes it. Andrew wraps it up with a par. There's Kevin Gleason shooting for par. And that will be pars for everybody. As this round comes to an end, Andrew holds on to that 3-stroke lead over Steve. We're going to take a quick break. We'll wrap things up. When we come back, don't go away. We'll be right back. And there you have it. At the end of round 2, it's Andrew Fish on top by 3 strokes, finishing ahead of Steve Brinster. Steve started off the round very hot. He had 2 birdies to start the round. But on the 3rd hole, he had to settle for par. And at that point, Andrew started a birdie run, and he just never looked back. By the 6th hole, he had tied Steve for first place, and wasn't that much long after that. On the back 9, he birdied hole 10, and he got first place. And from there on out, he just built on that lead right to the finish. Steve did his best, but he just could not keep up. So very exciting action on day 2 of the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge. That's all we have today. Join us next month, where we're going to show you round 3, the final round of competition at the 2017 Delaware Disc Golf Challenge. Thank you for joining us and watching Disc Golf Monthly, the show that takes you one step closer to the sport of disc golf.